The first time I saw Commander Valeira Thorne, she was standing in the middle of a crater. The crater hadn't existed 10 minutes earlier. We were stationed on Outpost K-47, a mineral-rich asteroid colony orbiting the dying blue star Caith Prime. The colony had been attacked by raiders from the Dravik Fringe, cybernetically enhanced mercenaries who specialized in fast strikes and faster disappearances. By the time our shuttle touched down, the battle was nearly over. Smoke curled in slow spirals against the thin, artificial atmosphere. Emergency lights flashed crimson against jagged steel walls. A squad of Dravik soldiers lay scattered across the fractured landing platform. And in the center of it all stood her, Commander Valeira Thorne of the Coalition Vanguard. 7 feet of armored precision and terrifying calm. Her combat suit was a seamless fusion of alien metallurgy and Coalition engineering, midnight black with veins of faint violet energy pulsing beneath its surface. In her right hand, she held a plasma blade twice the length of a human longsword, humming with lethal intensity. The ground around her feet was molten. The crater had been carved by a single downward strike. I stepped off the shuttle with the rest of the diplomatic reinforcement team, trying not to stare. "Don't," whispered Lieutenant Huxley beside me. "She hates that." "Staring?" I asked. "Breathing wrong. Existing loudly. Being incompetent. Pick one." Valeira turned her helmeted head toward us. Even through the visor, I felt the weight of her gaze. She deactivated her blade. The humming ceased, leaving only the distant crackle of emergency sirens. "Status," she demanded. Her voice was calm, low, and resonant, layered faintly with the subtle harmonics common to her species, the ethery. "Outpost secured," Huxley replied quickly. "Raiders neutralized. Minor structural damage. Casualties? 3 injured. No fatalities." Valeira gave a single nod. "Begin evacuation protocols. The Dravik will not risk a second wave." As soldiers dispersed, I stepped forward, adjusting the data slate in my hands. "Commander Thorne?" Her helmet turned toward me again. "Yes, Dr. Elias Mercer. Coalition Cultural Liaison." A pause. "Why is a cultural liaison on a combat drop?" "Because the Dravik are escalating raids into E3 protected sectors," I said. "The Coalition wants to ensure continued cooperation." "You require my cooperation to stop criminals?" "No," I said carefully. "We require your trust." A long silence. Then, she removed her helmet. I wasn't prepared. Her skin carried a faint opalescent sheen, like moonlight over water. Angular cheekbones framed sharp, intelligent eyes the color of burning amethyst. A series of faint luminous markings traced from her temples down along her jaw, bioluminescent patterns unique to her lineage. There was a thin streak of ash across her cheek. She looked carved from war and starlight. "You have 5 minutes," she said. 2. The warrior without weakness. Over the next 3 weeks, I saw Commander Valeira dismantle 3 pirate cells, negotiate a ceasefire between rival mining guilds, and train her soldiers with a severity that bordered on mythic. She did not laugh. She did not relax. She did not lose. Among the vanguard, she was referred to simply as the Blade. Among our human troops, she had earned a different title. The strongest fighter in the room. It wasn't exaggeration. Ethery physiology granted enhanced reflexes and strength. Combined with coalition enhancements and her own relentless discipline, Valeira was something else entirely. But what fascinated me wasn't her combat prowess. It was her restraint. She never celebrated victory. Never indulged in dominance. She fought because she believed she must. One evening, I found her alone in the training bay. She was moving through combat forms with her blade, precise arcs of light slicing through the air. Each motion was deliberate, controlled, flawless. You practice even after combat deployments? I asked. Without looking at me, she replied, skill deteriorates when neglected. You're already the most capable officer in this sector. That is irrelevant. I leaned against the wall. Do you ever stop? Her blade paused mid-arc. Explain. Do you ever just exist? Without preparing for the next threat. She extinguished the blade and turned toward me. Existence without readiness invites extinction. That's a very bleak philosophy. It is a correct one. She retrieved a cloth and began wiping residual plasma scoring from the blade's hilt. You study culture, she said. Study this. The Aetheri were nearly annihilated 2 centuries ago. Preparedness is not optional. I nodded slowly. I understand survival. No, she said calmly. You understand theory. It wasn't an insult, just a statement. Still, I felt compelled to push further. And what do you understand, Commander? Beyond war. Her hands stilled. A flicker, barely perceptible, crossed her face. I understand duty. And nothing else? Her gaze sharpened. Why are you here, Dr. Mercer? Because, I admitted, I think the Coalition sees you as a weapon. And you disagree? I think you're more than that. Silence. Something shifted in her expression, so subtle I almost missed it. But then it was gone. Your 5 minutes have ended, she said. 3. The word that disarmed her. The turning point came during a joint training exercise with human and Aetheri forces. Simulated urban combat. Tight corridors. Controlled aggression. I wasn't meant to participate. Observers remained behind reinforced glass panels. But during a scenario malfunction, a drone's targeting system glitched. It switched from stun pulses to live plasma discharge. Panic rippled through the trainees. Before I could react, Veilira was already moving. She leapt onto a collapsed support beam, vaulted over incoming fire, and sliced the drone cleanly in half midair. It was breathtaking. The room erupted in relieved applause. Veilira deactivated her blade and turned toward the group, her expression stern. Complacency, she said sharply. Had this been a real malfunction, 2 of you would be dead. The applause died instantly. The trainees straightened. And then, without thinking, I said it. You are incredible. She looked at me. I smiled faintly. No, really. The way you moved. It was. I searched for a word that didn't sound clinical. Sweet. The word slipped out before my brain could intercept it. The room went very quiet. Several soldiers stared at me as though I had just insulted a deity. Veilira blinked. Clarify. I mean graceful, precise, effortless. Her fingers tightened around the hilt of her blade. Sweet, she repeated slowly, as if examining a foreign object. Yes, I said, realizing too late how it sounded. In a refined way. A faint flush crept upward from her collarbone to her cheeks. I froze. The strongest fighter in the room turned red. Her bioluminescent markings flickered erratically. She lowered her blade. Then, in a motion so uncharacteristically uncertain it stunned the entire bay, she dropped it. The plasma blade clattered harmlessly against the reinforced floor. Gasps echoed around us. Veilira stared at the fallen weapon. Then, astonishingly, she raised one hand and covered part of her face. Training dismissed, she said, voice slightly tighter than usual. And she walked out. 4. The embarrassment of a warrior. The rumor spread within hours. The commander blushed. The blade got flustered. Dr. Mercer disarmed her with a compliment. I spent the next 2 days avoiding every knowing glance in the corridors. On the third evening, I found Veolyra on the observation deck overlooking Caith Prime. The dying star cast blue light across her silhouette. "I owe you an apology," I began. She did not turn. "For what?" "For making you uncomfortable." A pause. "You did not. You dropped your weapon." "Yes." "That's not typical." Her jaw tightened. Ethery culture does not equate martial capability with emotional suppression. That's good. It is also considered intimate to describe a warrior in terms of gentleness. I winced. "I didn't mean it that way." "You described my combat form as sweet." "Yes." That word is typically reserved for offspring or bonded partners. "Ah." "Well," I said awkwardly, "I meant it as admiration." She finally turned toward me. Her expression was not angry. It was conflicted. "You perceive me as something other than a weapon. I've said that before. And you persist." "Yes." Her luminous markings pulsed faintly. "In ethery tradition," she said slowly, "warriors are valued for strength, not softness." "I didn't call you soft." "You implied it." "I implied you were beautiful." The word hung between us. There it was again. The flush. Her gaze dropped for half a second before she forced it back up. "I am not accustomed to such assessments." "That's a tragedy." Her breath hitched almost imperceptibly. "You are reckless with language," she said quietly. "I prefer honest. And if honesty destabilizes discipline, then maybe the discipline was fragile." That earned me a sharp look. "You suggest weakness." "I suggest humanity." "You forget," she said softly, "I am not human." "No," I agreed. "But you're alive." Silence. The star pulsed faintly beyond the viewport. After a long moment, she spoke again. "When you called my movement sweet, I experienced a physiological response inconsistent with combat readiness." "You mean you blushed?" "Yes." "I think that's allowed." "For soldiers under my command?" "For anyone." She studied me as though recalibrating her understanding of something fundamental. "Why does it not threaten you?" she asked. "What?" "My strength." "Why would it?" "Many perceive it as intimidating." "It is. And I find it impressive, not frightening." A long pause. Her voice lowered. "Dr. Mercer, if you continue speaking to me in this manner, I may experience further physiological irregularities." I smiled. "I'll try not to overwhelm you." Her markings flickered again. "You're doing it intentionally." "Maybe." She looked away, but not before I caught the faint upward twitch of her lips. The battle that changed everything. The Dravik returned 2 weeks later. This time, they brought a warship. Outpost K-47 went dark within seconds of their arrival. Communications scrambled. Defense turrets disabled. It wasn't a raid. It was a statement. Veolyra stood at the command deck, issuing orders with flawless precision. "Deploy interceptor wings. Activate auxiliary shields. Divert power from non-essential sectors." I watched her, calm amid chaos. But I also noticed something else. Her jaw was tighter than usual. The Dravik warship unleashed a barrage of kinetic strikes, hammering the station's outer hull. "Boarding craft inbound," an officer shouted. Veolyra ignited her blade. "Hold the line," she commanded. I caught her arm before she could leave the deck. "Wait." Her eyes flashed. "Release me. You don't have to do this alone. I am the ranking combat officer. You're also the most targeted." She hesitated. The Dravik knew her reputation. They would focus on eliminating her. "Let the squad handle first engagement," I said. "You coordinate." "I do not coordinate from behind." You don't have to prove anything. Her gaze burned into mine. I do not seek validation. Then why do you fight like you have something to lose? That stopped her. The ship shuddered violently. A breach alarm blared. Without another word, she turned and strode toward the lower decks. I followed. The corridors were chaos. Dravik soldiers poured through ruptured airlocks. Plasma fire lit the passageways in violent bursts. Veolyra moved like a storm. Blade flashing. Strikes precise. Unstoppable. But then, a sniper round from the far end of the corridor pierced through a gap in her armor plating. She staggered. Just slightly, but enough. A second Dravik lunged toward her exposed flank. I didn't think. I grabbed a fallen sidearm and fired. The shot hit true. The attacker dropped. Veolyra regained her footing and finished the engagement in 3 brutal seconds. When the corridor fell silent, she turned to me. You should not be here, she said, breath uneven. You're bleeding. It is superficial. It's not. She tried to step forward and faltered. I caught her. The strongest fighter in the room leaned against me. Her weight was solid, real. Her skin warm beneath damaged armor. I miscalculated, she admitted quietly. You're allowed to. Commanders do not miscalculate. Commanders are alive, I said. And that's enough. Her luminous markings flickered weakly. You protected me. Yes. Why? I met her gaze. Because you matter. The flush returned, fainter this time, edged with exhaustion. I cannot afford to be destabilized during combat. Then don't think of it as destabilizing. What then? Think of it as balance. Her eyes searched mine as the medics arrived. Dr. Mercer, she whispered. Yes. When this battle ends, we must discuss your continued influence on my physiological state. I laughed softly. I look forward to it. 6. The blush behind the blade. The Dravik warship retreated after sustaining critical damage from coordinated coalition strikes. Outpost K-47 survived. Barely. Veolyra recovered in the medical wing for 3 days. When she was cleared for duty, she requested a private meeting. I entered her quarters cautiously. She stood by the viewport, armor removed, dressed in simple ethery ceremonial fabric. Without the armor, she seemed, if possible, even more formidable and more vulnerable. You risked your life, she said. So did you. That is different. Why? I am trained for war. And I'm trained for diplomacy. She faced me fully. Your presence alters my combat assessments. Because you're worried about me? Yes. Is that bad? It introduces variables. Everything introduces variables. She stepped closer. Her luminous markings glowed softly, not with combat energy, but something steadier. When you called my movement sweet, she said quietly, I believed you diminished my strength. I never would. I understand that now. And I have reached a conclusion. I swallowed. Which is? She took another step, close enough that I could feel the faint warmth radiating from her skin. My strength is not reduced by softness. No, I said softly. It's enhanced. Her fingers hovered near my hand, hesitating. For the first time, she admitted, I do not feel required to be the strongest entity in the room. You don't have to be. Her hand finally closed around mine. Steady. Warm. I am still the strongest fighter present, she said. I smiled. I wouldn't argue that. But, she continued, her voice lowering, I am no longer afraid of the blush behind the blade. And this time, when her cheeks flushed violet, she didn't hide it. Epilogue. Strength redefined. Months later, Outpost K, 47 became a symbol of renewed coalition unity. Dravic raids diminished. Joint Ether-Human task forces became standard. And Commander Veilira Thorn's reputation evolved. She was still the Blade, still the strongest fighter in any room.
But now,
she laughed occasionally, allowed moments of stillness, accepted admiration without retreat. As for me, I learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say to a warrior isn't about their strength. It's about their grace. And sometimes, the fiercest blade in the galaxy hides a blush that changes everything.